Hello and welcome to the McLeod Software in Motion series. Today I'm joined with Kem Wallace, who is a solutions architect here at McLeod Software. Hello, Kem.
Hello, Robert.
So tell us a little bit about your history here at McLeod.
So, Robert, I've been here for going on 10 years now. After spending over 30 years over on the trucking and brokerage side in the transportation business, and really look forward to talking today about this driver choice module that we're all excited about.
So obviously with your experience, you'll have some insight on our subject today, which is improving your driver's experience. We're going to be talking about a new module today, driver's choice. So Kim, tell us a little bit about the driver's choice concept and what McLeod's been working on.
That concept really is three basic items, which is A, let's collect the information from the drivers that is what their preferences are. If they're owner-operators, what's the minimum load that they'd like to take? What kind of deadhead numbers, do they want to be considered for their loads? What type of freight would they like to haul? What areas of the country do they want to go or not want to go to? Are just a kind of an example of what we collect. So we then take that information and we put it in the system in the driver's master file, and then it's used by our system to be able to present a list of loads back that are looking at these preferences and filtering out all the non-preferred freight, if you will, back to the driver. And then we present that to both the in-house stakeholders, such as driver managers and fleet managers, as well as the drivers.
Okay. So Kim, where would we talk about preferences? Where in the software would we start defining those driver preferences?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we did is we took the driver's permanent file, if you will, the master record as we'd call it in the software, and we took that information and added a new tab to be able to support the driver choice mechanism in the software. And what that tab really does is it allows the identification of the driver's preferences so they can be accessed and considered by the system. And as I talked about just a minute ago, this includes the driver's priorities such as empty distance, minimum revenue requirements, and then the settings also include commodities that they do or don't want to haul, as well as areas of the country that they would like to be working in. But really the most important part of the driver, of those ones I just mentioned, really is that lane exclusion. Drivers have preferences. Sometimes it's based on seasonality, but they really like to take freight where they're most familiar or where they think it's going to work out for their own personal reasons, familiarity being a lot of that. So we want to make sure that we correctly map that information into the system and then filter out those loads when possible, that we filter out those loads that aren't in those areas to let them be able to look at just their favorite freight. Now, ultimately operations can make any changes to those preferences on the fly if the driver changes their mind or decides, hey, I'd like to go try running the Southwest, etc. So we've made that access pretty easy for them to make those changes.
Okay, so I could see this being used for new drivers as well. So new hires who you want to put in a controlled environment, in a controlled area, could it be used for that as well?
Absolutely correct. So the software allows you to be able to determine which drivers do and don't have access to this information. So if you have a new driver that might be, let's say, a probationary driver that you want to make sure that they're working with a fleet manager on a daily basis, so that that fleet manager can kind of help with that culture adjustment. And then after the fleet manager might determine that that driver is probably good to go on their own, simply access that record and make the change and allow that driver that level of visibility that the product offers.
Okay. I think one big concept of this is a feature called Feasibility. Can you tell us what Feasibility is?
Absolutely. So Feasibility has been in the Loadmaster product now for more than a few years. But what we've done here, including it in driver choice, is an important feature. Now the reason that feasibility is so critical is because it takes all of the vertical logic, if you will, that operations folks are normally having to do to be able to understand if a load is a good fit or not, And we know that having a load be a good fit really is to the success of the driver. Picking a poor load or a poorly planned load can really affect what they do. So feasibility looks at hours of service, it looks at potential conflicts for home time or other significant events. It looks at the driver's ability to make the deadhead work for that movement, and then can they do the transition, the en route move from an hours of service standpoint. And we're taking in required breaks, fueling time, 70-hour rules that come into play. We're taking all that information and in half a second showing an indication of whether that load makes good sense for that driver or not. And we're also looking at any excess dwell that might be incurred, that while the driver can certainly make it, they don't want to wait 18 hours at the delivery point because they arrive early. Driver choice takes that, and before it ever presents a load back to either operations or the driver, make sure that the feasibility is ran and they've got a green light from feasibility and that no exceptions are there before they ever present that load back to the driver. Very important feature that we are crushing that vertical logic on 100 loads to be able to present the top 5 back through driver choice.
Okay, I can see where that would take out a lot of the human error in doing the math on time. Does this driver have an opportunity to get this load cross country and still make the delivery? So I think that would be a good concept. So tell me in a workflow standpoint how this would work.
So really, if you think of the workflow, there's a parallel. Now in some fleets that they want the driver managers to be doing the driver choice work, we would take that same profile that we set up. We would give the driver manager a button on the planner that's there right now that they can select, and we'll look at 100 loads. We'll run feasibility on the top loads, provide them the top 5 loads for that driver based on all those preferences we talked about just a couple of minutes ago, and present them in best match at the top and then work our way down. That allows them to review the choice with the driver. They're able to also, if the driver wants to decline one for a particular reason, and they decline that, we'll record the declination on the driver's record and then present another load from the bullpen, if you will, and move back up to this. Now we've got 5 more loads to pick from. So we would have operations pre-assigned from there after reviewing with the driver, and basically that would be the end of their workflow. Now from the driver aspect, that workflow would really come along that they would open up the mobile application, which driver choice has now been added into our mobile driver apps, and they could review the same loads that operations is looking at. And in fact, if they want to get on the phone call, they can be reviewing the mobile app with the person in operations, so that they're actually looking at exactly the same loads, and the driver can have, with the touch of a finger on the mobile application, drill into any level of detail they wish.
So having the driver with having remote capability, tell me what kind of detail does the driver see on the mobile app?
So on the initial application, once they select driver choice from the menu, they're able to look at a list of loads that might be, that initial review, the OD pair, what the pay is, etc. But then if they want to get some details, such as the routing, for an example, or what the plan might be, they can simply touch that load, and the system opens up a secondary screen that has the details, the notes, everything about that load that's in LoadMaster right now is sent out to the driver for them to be able to make that best, most informed determination about whether that load's a good fit or not. If you look at this from a recruiting standpoint, it's a recruiter's dream to be able to tell a driver that if you come to work for us, you're going to be able to participate in your load experience. You're going to be able to put in your preferences, and we're going to be able to select loads that are designed to fit exactly how you want to run your equipment if you're an owner operator, or how to operate in the vicinities that you're looking at, and allows you more participation than you've ever had anywhere else that you've been. And then certainly from the retention side, that same benefit is going to raise a lot of awareness of the driver's ability to be a cooperating person in the decision process, as opposed to sometimes it not quite working that way.
Okay, and overall, improving the driver's experience.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time today. If you have questions about this or any other module that McLeod Software offers, please feel free to reach out to one of our software sales representatives.